Be a part of the best pro wrestling podcast today at patreon.com/Steve and Larson. Enjoy tons of bonus videos, including patron-only live shows, gameplay, and vintage 10 for the wins, access to podcast question threads, the Friendo Care Package, and so much more. Support Going In Raw today at patreon.com/Steve and Larson. Hey friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
And on today's Going In Raw news brief, Pat McAfee talks about his future in wrestling. WWE call-ups are getting stiff by WWE. We predict Impact's Emergence Night 2. But first, the real reason for Keith Lee's theme music change has been revealed. Larson, what's in the news?
So, during Keith Lee's impressive debut last night on Raw, we all noticed a couple things were different about his presentation. He had some new ring gear. Yeah, new theme, and kind of it wasn't really met with any sort of popular approval.
Quite the opposite.
Didn't like it.
People crapped all over it. This is like the most generic. It was like the most generic theme music.
It's really generic.
It's super generic.
However, Fightful Select, and go subscribe to Fightful Select, has some details on why WWE decided to change his entrance music for his main roster call-up, reporting that WWE has been, quote, urging talent to ditch their CFO $ themes. And that apparently has to do with a crap publishing deal that CFO $ signed. Fightful states that Lee agreed to the change, but some other superstars have rejected the idea of changing themes, I would guess, from something that's maybe good that CFO $ has to something generic that WB has laying around in their vaults somewhere.
Yeah, what are these? What are they supposed to do? Like they're being urged to like get rid of? Okay, fine. Hold on a second. Let me whip something up on crappy GarageBand here real quick, and then you can play that. What are they supposed to do? These are athletes and performers, not musicians.
Well, also, I mean, they're not just athletes and performers. They're athletes and performers where their presentation, their packaging, does a lot for them.
It does,
you know? So anyways, back in February, Fightful had some details on CFO $'s bad publishing deal and how it affected their relationship with WWE. That's what they had to say. Quote, according to one source, CFO $ was out a significant cut of money as it relates to their deal. Apparently, in the previous Fightful Select story, like their publishing deal says their publisher gets like half their royalties. It's absurd.
It's horrible.
The same
exploitation of artists, man.
More from Fightful. The same aforementioned source indicated that CFO $ tried to get WWE to buy them out of their deal, which WWE seemed on board with, but the publisher rejected. The plan that Fightful heard was that WWE hoped to bring them in-house, but the talks got to a standstill and eventually ran out. It's thought that CFO $ have a non-compete with their publisher, which is why they haven't returned. That's a crummy deal, man.
Yeah, that's a super crummy deal. I just don't I understand that. So it just sounds like, number one, there's some details that are sort of missing from this, like the entire picture, because like if CFO was contracted to do this work for WWE and WWE has these things, I mean, I guess if WWE continues to, maybe the arrangement, I'm just completely guessing in terms of why WWE would then want to discontinue using these theme songs. I'm assuming it's because when they do, they have to pay out royalties to CFO $ and to their publisher. Would that be? And they're like, oh, we don't want to do that anymore.
I guess it would depend on the nature of the arrangement they had. Is it a situation where CFO $ would create these themes and WWE would license those themes? Then I believe the situation you laid out is correct. If this is a work for hire situation where WWE pays CFO $ a flat rate, it would be then WWE would own those songs.
And why would they? Yeah, so I would assume then it's got to be a licensing
thing.
Thing.
Yeah, think so. Yeah.
I mean, when they had Jim Johnston in house, that was like, okay, you're, I would assume, an employee.
Everything's work for hire then.
And that's work. That's work for hire.
WWE
exactly.
owns all that music. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's funny. I understand. Okay, this is a clean slate. We're changing over. The thing that WWE really has to, if they want to get, and maybe seemingly they don't care, but the perception that exists, and I understand the perception, But because like everybody in our comments on the YouTube video is like, oh, Steve, you're crazy. They're burying him. They're changing his music. That means they're burying him, overlooking the fact. But here's the thing. I understand that sentiment because there is a precedent for it.
There is a precedent. And, like the theme stuff, if Fightful Select report is accurate, and I have no reason to think it's not, because they do great work over there, then that makes sense. I get it. From a legal standpoint, if WWE thought, okay. I mean, the thing is, I don't know how it's different than NXT versus on WWE main. I don't know if the licensing deal is different.
Yeah,
I don't know why seemingly they're cool using CFO $sign stuff maybe in NXT, but main is a different deal. I just don't know. Maybe it's a situation where since main is seen by more people, maybe the deal is based on some metric that main roster does better than NXT. I don't know, but I completely lost my train of thought. Carry on.
No, that's fine. It's my speculation is this: they view main roster as a clean slate. It's, hey, let's present you now in a different light, similar to, somebody making a return. Sasha Banks returns. She's got a new attitude. Sure, her hair is a different color. Let's take that opportunity to give the audience a packaging representation of that, a visual and audio representation of that. So let's change her music, which she did. Bailey, same thing, heel turn. She got new music because obviously the last stuff didn't reflect her. The problem with call-ups is that they're different. And honestly, like if they want to start building back the credibility with the audience, you just let him continue to do his NXT stuff and keep that the same. Put him in the good spot that he's in, which you can't argue. Like a match with Randy Orton and Payback is not a good. It's a great spot. You do that, and maybe at his pay-per-view debut, which is a big deal, and everybody's like, "Oh wow!" Then you give him a new theme song. Then you have him debut the new gear.
Yeah, and I think the point is not so much they changed the theme, is they just changed it to a crummy theme. Like if they changed it and it was awesome, and it was as good a representation of Keith Lee's NXT theme, then people would be like, "Oh, this is great, fantastic." But it's not that. It's generic.
If there was some
boring.
if there was like some obvious actual production value behind it, then it would probably people would be like, "Oh wow, like." I'm used to the old thing, but I'm open to it.
But I mean, in terms of viewers who don't watch NXT, who are unfamiliar with Keith Lee's work, you hear "Bask in His Glory," you hear him, doing the vocals for his own theme, and I don't know, there's something about that is a lot more captivating than another generic entrance. This guy must be another generic wrestler in WWE's eyes if he's got just another generic entrance. From a presentation standpoint, I feel like the quality of the theme music does matter. Granted, he'll change minds as soon as he steps foot in that ring and starts doing all the incredible stuff he can do. But in terms of first impressions, when his music hits, and you're like, "Oh, okay, well, this is boring." What does that tell me about this wrestler?
Here's the thing about it too, is that, I mean, just going back to the business aspect of things, this CFO $sign thing, like, do you have the date on that last Fightful report, like the previous one?
It's February. I believe February of this year.
Dude, it's been 6 months. This is a $1 billion company. They can't find a different set of musicians to work with that have.
I know.
Get on SoundCloud. There's a million of them out there. Put a call out there. Do it. Make it public. Make it like a big, hey, we're looking for the next WWE music producer. Send us your dope beats and freshest jams, and we'll bring you on board. You could be the new Jim Johnson. It's insane that they don't do that.
Especially
it's crazy
today when music production is pretty easy. Anybody with a laptop, and a MIDI keyboard can, create wrestling themes.
And here's the thing. If you make it a personality-based thing, I'm sorry, you don't make it a personality-based thing, but you say, hey, this is the winner, you publicize who the winner is, people will be more willing to give that theme music the benefit of the doubt, because it's like, oh, we get to see who this is. This person was in their basement doing these dope jams, fresh beats. They won this contest because people voted their music. And now look at what they're doing. They're more apt. It's this whole, like, WWE can be too corporate for their own good sometimes,
Oh, yeah. They quite often are.
Oftentimes.
Quite often are, yes.
So speaking of Pat McAfee, we're about to do that. he's talking about his future with that corporation, the WWE. So obviously, following his very impressive in-ring debut during last weekend's NXT Takeover 30, Pat McAfee spoke to ESPN about his future in the WWE. And he said this. To be completely honest, I'm not 100% sure what's going to happen. I'm not under contract to do anything else with Mr. H. I assume he and I will talk about this at some point because I heard his comments in the press conference afterward, which were very nice. But for me, all I was worried about was that match at NXT TakeOver 30, and then I'll let everything else kind of sort itself out, and I think that's where I'm at right now. I feel good. If I never get in the ring again, I'll be very thankful for the opportunity. I'll be proud of it. If something pops up and it's right, and my wife doesn't mind, because I did miss some of the honeymoon for this whole thing, and she's been incredibly cool. There's a lot that goes into it. To be honest, I just started thinking about it within the last 24 hours, and I have no idea what the future holds. Let's see here. During his traditional post-takeover conference call, of course, Triple H said this about McAfee, and these transcripts come to you from Wrestling Inc. Pat has every intention of doing this and being not only an NXT superstar, but if the time is right, a WWE superstar. Wow, Triple H is contradicting what Pat McAfee said.
Kind of.
He has a lot of other commitments from his podcast, everything else he does. He has a lot of commitments on a lot of things across the board, but he's very serious about this, and we'll see where it goes. So he's trying to twist his arm there in the press, commit for him.
He also said during that conference call something like, hey, Triple H, remember we have this phone call. We could talk about it when I'm inducted into the Hall of Fame. That's what McAfee said.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. I feel like the dude, he does have a lot on his plate. Would I want to see him as a regular NXT superstar? Not really. I kind of like the role he's in right now.
Yeah, I mean, if he pops up from here and there, from time to time here and there, and has a match or two a year, if he could put on performances on par with what he did against Adam Cole, why not?
You know what would be,
because he brings eyeballs to NXT. Apparently, he brought eyeballs to our videos about him.
You're right. What would be fun is if these guys are enemies. I would like to see them as a reluctant tag team. That's sort of the next story that I would like to see, because. And then eventually them just become friends. Because honestly, it seems like they really like each other.
Oh, yeah.
They work really well together. They have good chemistry. I mean, Adam Cole, when he would, when he was talking about the Pat McAfee on a pole match, he couldn't, they both were just honestly, on the verge of cracking up over the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
So, I don't know, man. I think that it could be fun as long as it's within the context of, hey, let's do some more goofy stuff with Adam Cole. Yeah. That could be fun.
Totally. Speaking of NXT, so we've had some NXT call-ups of late hitting the main roster, and with the company making record profits. They've never made more money. You'd think that maybe they'd all get new deals that reflect the fact that they're on the main roster now, but Fightful is reporting that's not the case. This is what Fightful had to say. Quote, Fightful has heard from multiple sources that several recent WWE call-ups have not received new contracts. Many of them are actually working lighter schedules than they were in NXT before the pandemic started. One source high up in WWE told us that the topic of extending the contracts or offering new ones will likely be broached when things return to normal. Though that's much easier said than done, WWE has no idea what their live event schedule will look like when that happens, or even if they'll have one outside of TV. So that it sounds like this, even now in this current climate, they're tying their contracts seemingly exclusively to how many dates you work. Sorry. As opposed to anything else. But I mean, let's say we get through pandemic era and WWE realizes, hey, we lose money doing as many live events. So say they do Raw, SmackDown, and each maybe has an additional live show, house show per week. So that's 2 shows a week. Are they going to go to everybody and say, sorry, everybody's got to take a pay cut now?
I don't like this phrase because it's got some negative connotations, but in this case, and in a lot of things, it's actually true. The market will sort itself out, because you got AEW, you got Impact seemingly with this bizarre reserve of money that they're able to throw at whoever.
That's the thing. And here's the thing: they'll go to Randy. They won't go to Randy Orton and say that.
No.
Orton's. I'm sure Orton's deal is about as ironclad as it gets.
Yes.
But you go to somebody in the mid card or lower card. People who don't have potentially the leverage in negotiations in terms of potentially going to AEW or Impact or whatnot. They can go to them. It's sorry, I know you signed this deal. It's 5 years or so much money, but you're not working. You're not gonna be working these dates, so we got to cut your pay. That sucks.
They're gonna. I mean, it's right now we're in the middle of them figuring out what the new normal is gonna be. I mean, yeah, they're getting rid of live events because they don't sell well. They got a competitor in AEW that has money, and they've got Impact that has money, and so they're gonna be figuring out, okay, Taynara Conti, we don't want to pay you more money. So what happens then if she goes to AEW? Can she make a star out of herself there?
Yeah.
And are we going to lose out on that? There's going to be some decisions that have to be made if they're not making their money back. I understand that. I get that they're super profitable and everything, but like any business, they take a look. Okay, well, this is what we're willing to pay for this element of our business. And now that we're not doing as many dates, it seems like their value should go down because we're not utilizing them as much. Now, whether or not that will play out for the WWE, that might end up shooting them in the foot, in which case they're going to learn from that, and they're going to have to pay people more money per date, and they're going to be stuck doing that. Or it won't end up shooting them in the foot because not everybody can be Taynara Conti, who goes to AEW, and I mean, I don't know if she's going to be on TV again. I hope so. I think she's great.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Maybe she needs a little bit more training, but I think she's good. I don't know. The market will sort itself out. If
Yeah. I wonder what the difference is.
You want to engender good morale with your company, then give out raises, and people want to stick around with your company.
Or at the minimum, don't cut their pay.
Yeah. Do you not care about that? Then okay, then you're either going to suffer the consequences or you won't. It's that simple.
Pretty much. I wonder what because obviously, like in terms of profitability, not doing these live events has been a benefit for the company. But in terms of actual revenue brought in versus expenditures, I just wonder because I think in the last quarter financials, like overall revenue was slightly down. It was this profitability that was way up. So I guess at the end of the day, the number that perhaps most important is profitability and how that makes the shareholders happy.
You know what they could do. And this is again me speaking out of my ass because what do I know, right? But one thing they really would maybe consider, and maybe they have this given what we've seen, maybe not, I don't know, but we've seen an absolute groundswell, an explosion of wrestlers taking it upon themselves to start building their own brand on things like Twitch.
Yeah.
Or being social media influencers, I mean, if you look at most of the women's division, especially, they have been able to get themselves some brand deals just via their own Instagram accounts. If the WWE were to say, hey, listen, we can't pay you because it doesn't make sense in our budget. We can't pay you per date more than we were before, but we have this guy over here, or this department over here that will help you establish your own brand so you can monetize yourself and make up some money that way and set yourself up for a post-wrestling future. I mean, that kind of thing, you would think that, oh, wow, WWE will help set me up like that. I could have the next up, up, down, down, or I can have the next whatever.
Yeah.
They're helping me get those brand deals to my Instagram. That would be one thing that would be low cost to the WWE because you're only paying a couple people a salary to do this, some social media experts.
They would get some sort of commission money, sort of brand deals, obviously, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And on top of that, you're showing your wrestlers, hey, we're going to help you succeed on your own independently going forward. I don't know if WWE would be interested in that, if they care. But the WWE, one thing they do have is a big platform, which wrestlers, if they're savvy enough, they can find ways to monetize. We've seen that already. They can
leverage that for their own benefit.
And not saying AEW can't offer that, because they do also. They obviously have a very, very deep. I mean, I'm sure everybody who's been on Dark has been able to benefit from that as well. If you're making a splash,
and I mean, the AEW has been very aggressive in terms of merchandising, obviously, and licensing. Their company thus far. I mean, they haven't even been around a year, or like in terms of televised show, and they already have action figures out.
Well, that's
video games in the workhorse. They're basically a T-shirt company as well as a wrestling promotion.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's one thing that WWE really could learn from AEW is the merchandising thing, is the T-shirt thing, because they get that one dude cranking out, like, some of his shirts are okay and some are just god awful.
And a lot of them are close to being decent, but seemingly half-baked.
Some of them are so close.
Like the Liv Morgan one. That's so close to being a really cool shirt.
It's so close, I know.
Really close.
So, hook them up with independent designers. Hook them up with Juan Ortiz, and let them go outside this. They're supposed to be independent contractors. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if that's the case for like their, obviously when Jim Johnston was there. I'm talking about their wrestlers.
Yeah. But I meant like in terms of the art department and stuff. People who designed the t-shirt.
Oh, they're probably employees. Yeah, those are employees. Yeah. But I'm saying, like, the wrestlers are independent contractors. Let them be a little bit more independent. Let them go out there and...
Independent contractors.
I know, it's a big joke. Anyways, speaking of a big joke, we got Emergence Night 2 tonight. That was a joke. We've got that right here, twitch.tv/Stephen. Well, this is on YouTube. But over at twitch.tv/Stephen Larson, I'm going to be checking out Emergence Night 2. You can watch it with me. I'm in a window. Emergence Night 2 is in a window, assuming Impact has their streaming stuff on point.
Yeah.
And that should be a lot of fun. So I'm going to watch it live at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Tonight we've got, this should be great, Deonna Purrazzo versus Jordan Grace, probably the main event. It should be. 30-minute knockouts Iron Man match. That should be good. Ed Edwards defends his title in an open challenge. Wonder who's going to turn themselves in to new Impact champion. Really, that's probably not going to be the main event because they do not treat that title anything close to a main event title. Speaking of main event titles, EC3 stole the TNA World Heavyweight Championship from Moose. So apparently we're going to find out why he did that. I imagine it has something to do with controlling a narrative. And then the most professional wrestler, Brian Myers, will be taking on Willie Mack. Larson, who do you got in each of these matches?
Willie Mack.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Eddie Edwards.
Yeah.
And then Jordan Grace.
Oh, wow. She's going to pick it back up, huh? All right. I'm going to go with the one that I will disagree with you on is Brian Myers. I agree with you on Jordan Grace and Ed Edwards. So our predictions will all come down to Brian Myers versus Willie Mack.
Nothing's on the line.
Here's the thing about Brian Myers. He's the most professional wrestler. That's what he's calling himself these days.
Yeah, no. Picking Willie Mack in that instance is probably a bad pick.
Anyways, hopefully we'll see you guys there. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We appreciate it. Till next time, we'll talk to you later.
Goodbye.
Be a part of the best pro wrestling podcast today at patreon.com/Steve and Larson. Enjoy tons of bonus videos, including patron-only live shows, gameplay, and vintage 10 for the wins, access to podcast question threads, the Friendo Care Package, and so much more. Support Going In Raw today at patreon.com/Steve and Larson.